Conan O'Brien understands that particular kind of grief now, the kind that comes from shock, from loss, from the unbearable aftermath of something you never thought could happen to people you know and love. When he speaks about it, there's a vulnerability in his words, an unguarded honesty that lingers with you. Months after the tragedy, he's still visibly shaken, and reading his reflections this week, I found myself unable to let go of the story. It haunted me the way only real heartbreak can. This is more than a news item about a celebrity or a headline you might scroll past. What happened to Conan O'Brien and his friends is about grief in its rawest form. It's about the sudden rupture in the fabric of life, when the ordinary, parties, laughter, promises of seeing each other soon, collides with the unthinkable. It's about the crushing responsibility and pain of being the last person to see someone alive before their world ends. And, of all things, it began at what should have been a night of joy, a Christmas party. Picture it for a moment, December 13th of last year. Conan O'Brien, the beloved late-night host, with the unmistakable red hair and legendary wit, was in the comfort of his own home, hosting his annual holiday gathering. The place was aglow with lights, full of warmth and laughter, a refuge against the winter dark. The guest list was intimate, packed with close friends. Among them, Rob Reiner, the iconic director and actor, and his wife, Michelle. If you've ever seen Rob talk about his wife, you know she was every bit as generous and kind as he was. In recent years, Conan and his wife Liza had grown especially close to the Reiners. The two couples had become part of each other's orbits: dinners, calls, shared stories, genuine affection. It was the kind of friendship that isn't just surface smiles but rooted in real connection. So there they all were, surrounded by holiday cheer. They did what friends do at these gatherings, laughing over old jokes, catching up about life, making those well-intentioned but often unfulfilled promises. "Let's do dinner soon. We shouldn't let so much time pass. You look fantastic. Merry Christmas, good night." All the usual rituals, each one tinged, in hindsight, with a bittersweet finality. But then, in a single day, everything changed. The very next morning, Rob and Michelle Reiner were gone. On December 14th, their bodies were discovered at their Brentwood home. They had been stabbed to death in what can only be described as a horrific, senseless act. It was their youngest daughter, Romy, just 27 and living right across the street, who came over to check on her parents and found them slain. The image of that moment, the shock, the unimaginable grief, lodges in your mind and refuses to leave. It's the kind of pain no child should ever have to endure. That same night, police arrested their son Nick, age 32, who had been living in the guest house on the property. He's now facing charges of first-degree murder and has pleaded not guilty. As the details emerged, it became clear this was a family that had been struggling, and not in the way that makes headlines, but in the hidden, private ways so many families do. Nick's battle with severe substance abuse had spanned years, 18 unsuccessful attempts at rehab, episodes of homelessness, and, in the weeks before the tragedy, his schizophrenia had worsened, apparently exacerbated by a recent medication change. Those close to the family described him as increasingly erratic, at times frightening. That night, Rob and Michelle had brought Nick with them to Conan's party. They explained to friends they were worried about him and wanted to keep him close, to keep an eye on him. There's something so deeply human and heartbreaking in that choice. Even when the situation felt precarious, even when fear crept in, their instinct as parents was to do what they could, to keep showing up, to offer love and presence as a shield against the darkness. It's what parents do. Even when it gets hard, even when they're scared themselves, they try to hold their children close, hoping against hope that love will be enough. But something was off that night, almost from the beginning. Guests noticed Nick's odd behavior. He stared at people, asked if they were famous, inserted himself into conversations that didn't involve him. At one point, he interrupted Bill Hader, who was deep in discussion. When Hader gently tried to redirect him, Nick reacted badly, standing there silently before storming away. As the evening went on, the situation deteriorated. Rob and Nick got into a heated argument. Not the kind of quiet disagreement families sometimes have, but a loud, public confrontation that drew the attention of others at the party. It was intense enough that someone suggested maybe they should call the police, but Conan, in his own home, surrounded by friends he cared about, made a choice, A choice most of us would probably make. Not here, not tonight. This is my house, my responsibility. He tried to mediate, to calm things down, to do what any good host or friend would do. After all, who calls the police on a friend's troubled child at a Christmas party? We all want to believe we can handle it, that things will settle down, that a little compassion and understanding will carry the day. Not long after, Rob and Michelle said their goodbyes and headed home. That was the last time Conan O'Brien ever saw them. Now, months later, Conan has opened up about what happened, speaking to The Hollywood Reporter and The New Yorker. When you hear him recount it, there's a devastating simplicity to his words. We had a party, we invited our really good friends, and then the next day, this terrible thing happened. But then, he adds something that stops you in your tracks. Something that gets at the heart of what so many people feel in the aftermath of tragedy. The sense of helplessness, of what-ifs, of the burden of memory. You see, it's not just the shock of losing friends. It's the knowledge that, for all the laughter and warmth, for all the attempts to do the right thing, tragedy can still slip through. Sometimes, love and vigilance aren't enough, and the people left behind are left to shoulder that truth, to carry it with them, long after the headlines fade. There's really no other way to put it. Life changes in an instant, and there's no preparing for the way it knocks you sideways. You host a Christmas party, the house is filled with laughter, warmth, people you care about. You pour drinks, tell stories, hug your friends goodbye at the end of the night, maybe linger in the doorway just a second longer as their car pulls away, thinking it's all just the same as it ever was. And then, a day later, the world is unrecognizable. Suddenly you're standing in the silence, surrounded by the echo of voices that are gone. Nothing makes sense. It never will. Not really. And then there's Conan, trying to find words for the loss, reaching for something bigger than his own grief. He doesn't just talk about Rob Reiner as a filmmaker or a friend, he talks about him as a force, a presence that filled the room, filled the world. Rob wasn't content to watch from the sidelines. He wasn't just a name in the credits or a face on the screen. He was someone who threw himself into the fray, who cared, loudly and passionately, about what happened in this country. He didn't just bask in the spotlight. He bent it toward what mattered. He used his voice, over and over, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. He spoke up when silence would have been easier. He argued when it would have been simpler to agree. He showed up when most people stayed home. And now, Conan says, the idea of that voice just stopping, gone in a flash, is something he still can't wrap his head around. That moment is devastating. It's the heart of the matter. Rob Reiner wasn't someone who faded quietly into the background. He was vivid, unmissable, always in motion. He never stopped creating, never stopped pushing, never stopped caring, right up until December 13th. And then, like the sudden cut to black at the end of a movie, it was over. The voice that had shaped so many stories, so many lives, was just gone. Conan goes on, recounting the sheer scope of Rob's work, and you can hear the awe in his voice. 7 films, one after another, that have become woven into the culture. More than just movies, but signposts in people's lives. Most artists are lucky to make a single work that endures. 2, and you're in the pantheon. 7, all within a decade? It's the kind of achievement that almost defies belief, a creative streak that altered the landscape of American cinema. This is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men, The American President. These aren't just titles, they're reference points, stories that people return to year after year, that get quoted at weddings and funerals, on first dates and long nights with friends. Conan says Spinal Tap alone, a wild, brilliant send-up of rock culture, was a seismic event for his generation. A film that took comedy apart and put it back together in a new way. It's impossible to overstate the influence, the sheer creative energy Rob brought to everything he touched, and that's only a fraction of what he's left behind. That's the man who was at that Christmas party, the man who debated passionately with his son, who walked out into the night with his wife, who turned at the door and said goodnight to Conan O'Brien, for the very last time. It's a small, ordinary moment, made extraordinary by what followed, an ordinary goodbye, now loaded with meaning. And now, with the Oscars looming on March 15th, all eyes are on Conan. People are wondering if he'll pay tribute to Rob from the stage, in front of millions, right in the heart of the industry Rob helped shape. There's a kind of poetry in it, the Oscars, surrounded by the art and the artists Rob championed, a place where the world pauses to celebrate stories. If there was ever a moment to honor a legacy, to let the world feel that loss and that gratitude, this is it. It feels right. It feels necessary. Rob's story, and the stories he told, deserve a send-off as big as the mark he left on the world. But amid all the public tributes and the headlines, there's a quieter truth Conan shares at the end of his interviews. He talks about grief, about how when you're young and untouched by loss, death is something abstract, a distant rumor, something that happens to other people. You move through life believing in the endlessness of things, the safety of the people you love. And then, all at once, that illusion is shattered. Someone is gone, and you're left walking through your days in a kind of daze, repeating, "Did you hear?" to anyone who will listen. That's what it is now, a world that feels unfamiliar, a reality that doesn't fit. Concussed, Conan says. It's a word that's honest in its understatement. You're not destroyed, not irreparably broken, you're stunned, dazed, knocked out of the comforting belief that nothing will ever change, that the people you love will always be there, waiting for you at the end of every day. We never know which good night will be the last. That's the truth we spend our lives trying not to see. Maybe that's what this story is really asking us to notice. Not to live in fear, not to spiral into anxiety over what might go wrong, but to savor the moments we get, to mean it, really mean it, when we say goodbye, to linger in the doorway a little longer, to say what we need to say while we still have the chance, to make every parting count for something. Rob and Michelle Reiner should have had more time. Their family deserved more years, more holidays, more ordinary days together. Conan O'Brien, standing in his doorway on December 13th, should have known he'd see his friends again, but he didn't. None of us do. That's the terrible, beautiful truth. So what's left? What can we do in the face of that uncertainty? All we have is the chance to carry those we've lost with us, to say their names, share their stories, keep their voices alive in our memories and our actions, to make the time we're given count for something real and lasting, to love without holding back, to speak our hearts, to stick around for just one more moment at the door. Say goodnight like you mean it. Every time. Because we don't know which goodbye is forever. All we can do is make sure, when we part, it's with all the love and meaning we can muster, so that even after the voices are gone, their echoes remain, guiding us forward.